not only Joe Flacco has injury concerns. Now, Ryan Tannehill and Andrew Luck are both looking to miss an extended amount of time. Andrew Luck, I heard up to 6 weeks in the regular seasons from Run Report, and I heard from Ryan Tannehill could be out for the entire season. Now, when I look at this, they asked the question, if Ryan Tannehill is forced to miss extended time, would you consider signing any of these quarterbacks? I'm also going to throw Andrew Luck in here, so just imagine. So, since Ryan Tannehill and Andrew Luck are injured, which out of these 6 quarterbacks would you take? RG3, Colin Kaepernick, Jay Cutler, Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, and Brett Favre. Okay, when I look at this, I see 5 out of the 6 quarterbacks are projects, and one of the quarterbacks is retired, and we all know which one's the retired one. And so all those are projects. So 4 of them are mobile quarterbacks. So from RG3 to Kaepernick to Manziel to Tebow, they're gonna need to have like a different run style of offense, and they can't run that pro style offense. And then you look at Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler has a new gig, so I really don't put that on there. I know Jay Cutler was on the list as potential guys that Adam Gase would go in. This ain't the first time Adam Gase would go after a retiree to play the quarterback position. Obviously, he went after Peyton Manning last year. I have a news story on that, one of my other previous videos. Now, when I look at this, I just don't see this. And also with Tim Tebow, he's playing with the New York Mets right now. I really don't think that he wants to change. And trust me, he was a better baseball player than a football player coming out of high school. And ideally, he's much better off in baseball. And you just look at that, all these guys are projects. And I don't think Jay Cutler is that well polished. I mean, he's not terrible, but ideally leadership there is quite a concern. And please, it is from Brett Favre just for the fun of it. So they literally say it on this Facebook thing on NFL and CBS. Got to figure that Brett Favre at least listens to the call, right? Well, I bet he does, but it's just very unrealistic. The one team Brett Favre actually said he would play for is the Cowboys, and I believe it has to be one concern. He has to not get hit. And no matter how good the Cowboys' offensive line is, it's kind of hinting that, well, he's destined to get hit, so he can't do it. And he's already enshrined the Hall of Fame. And there's also reports that he's actually suing the NFL, so that's kind of a concern. So that would be kind of weird if he would go back in. But all those quarterbacks are projects. But I also have to raise the question between Jay Cutler and Colin Kaepernick. And should I throw RG3 in there? Maybe, just maybe. But I'm going to decide between Cutler and Kaepernick because I think that's more of a debate. I know RG3 just had a workout with the Chargers, and ideally, I wouldn't mind bringing in any of these guys if Adam Gase wants to. Well, maybe some of them I would figure that it would be kind of weird to bring in a minor league baseball player currently to bring in or get as a drug addict. But ideally, you would work at them as projects, as guys you can work in the system and stuff like that. But I see this you're looking for a guy that's an NFL veteran. So I just see that in some guy that understands how to run an NFL offense. And 4 out of 6 of these guys don't know how to run an offense. One of these guys has a gig broadcasting, and then one's a retiree. So I really don't see that happening. So none of these. But if I had to pick between Kaepernick and Cutler, I really don't know. I guess a used donkey condom. I'll just throw that out there probably over both of those. But ideally, it's an interesting debate, and I'll explore both of it. So one thing for sure, Jay Cutler was the one guy that Adam Gase actually coached out of all of them, I believe. And one thing for sure is when it came to Jay Cutler, he actually made Jay Cutler look as if he's a decent quarterback in 2015, or maybe an average quarterback. Maybe decent sounds a little bit too strong of an adjective to describe Jay Cutler. And then Colin Kaepernick, when Adam Gase was interviewing for going to the 49ers, Adam Gase rated out what kind of offense he would already have with under Colin Kaepernick, and I found it pretty interesting. So that kind of does make a lot of sense there. And there are some people in Miami who are calling for Kaepernick, but there's also a lot of people not calling for Kaepernick. I think one thing for sure is Colin Kaepernick, I think, supported Fidel Castro. And one of his things, he wore a Fidel Castro thing, and that wouldn't really suit too well down there in Miami. If you don't know it, there's a lot of Cuban population in Miami, and if you think that they left Cuba and to go to America, there's probably a reason. I think Fidel plays a role in that. So as I look at that, I just think to myself, I can understand the concerns with signing Kaepernick, how that would anger the crowd. And ideally, there were some things with Colin Kaepernick being interested in the Miami Dolphins. I think one thing for sure is this is something that really made him look really bad character-wise, and this is before all the Black Lives Matter support and him kneeling for the national anthem. This is before all of that. He was posing with a Miami Dolphins hat in his hand. If you want to see the picture, I would. It's in the images. I'll send you to the link, and this is confirmed. This is real. I believe this was on his Instagram at one point, and I think he deleted it, but it is true that he was posing with his Miami Dolphins hat, and he says, "I'm going to wear whatever hat I want." And he was on the 49ers, and this is when he already had his big contract. So that's really a big concern that he's posing with another team's hat. And you look at that and think to yourself, that's not really the maturity or leadership that I really want. And this is what my issue is with character. And maybe that's the idea of him becoming a role model, doing all the kneeling and all that, kind of a point that Shannon Sharp brought up. But I just look at that. There's a lot of immaturity there versus Jay Cutler. I feel as if Adam Gase is going to go with his guy and would rather bring out his guy out of retirement. Because one thing for sure, when you look at Jay Cutler, he did work with Jay Cutler. So when you look at that, I think he's more realistic to work with a guy that he knows than a guy that he doesn't know, even though he wrote up. So if I had to pick one, Cutler and all that. Now, all these quarterbacks, who has the best chance of getting back into the NFL? RG3. I really liked RG3 in 2012, but then I realized, oh wow, this guy really does not know how to really look off a safety. This guy does not know how to run an offense, ideally at the pro level, and people figured him out quickly like that, really quickly, just quick as a snap right there. So I look at that, I think RG3 out all those 6 quarterbacks that I mentioned were out there. If you didn't hear the 6 quarterbacks, they were RG3, Colin Kaepernick, Jay Cutler, Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, and Brett Favre. If you didn't hear that, I'll put them in the description if you just want to see that. So I think that's a big thing right there. Now on to the Indianapolis Colts. Now the Indianapolis Colts are their need to get a quarterback. I think it would be hilarious if they would go after an RG3, just because they would have Andrew Luck, RG3, and Trent Richardson on their team at once, and that just seems kind of funny that they would have all those guys. But ideally, if you look at that, the Colts, I would say, are more screwed than the Miami Dolphins, because if I was the Dolphins, I would go with Matt Moore. And there was only one guy in the comment section that I saw on this Facebook post that said, I'll quote him, Matt Moore, enough said. That's the only guy I really saw to say that I would want to bring in Matt Moore. And I don't think Matt Moore is that bad. Whenever he comes in, whenever he came in 2011, and then when he came in 2016, I thought he did pretty well, so I would stick to that. But ideally, if I'm the Colts, I would trade for a veteran quarterback. And what some quarterbacks on the they might be interested in, I think Matt Castle could be a decent option right there. I also think that maybe they could go after I think Gradkowski might be on the market. That might be a guy they could be interested in. And I don't think Matt Hasselbeck, they're not calling him Matt Hasselbeck back out of retirement, so I doubt that. And so they're going to have to find a veteran quarterback, and there's not too many veteran quarterbacks on the market. I mean, do they really want to trade for Ryan Fitzpatrick? I wouldn't want to trade for Ryan Fitzpatrick very much either. So ideally, the Colts are in a really, really sticky situation, and I don't have an answer to a veteran quarterback that they can possibly go after except for Matt Castle. I think he's the backup for the Tennessee Titans, but then again, that's your division rival, and even that's a little bit sticky right there. If I had to pick one on top of my head, maybe a Mark Sanchez. I think that guy could be pretty decent. At least you got a guy. He does throw some picks, but at least he's been in the NFL. and at least you have something out of there. But I'm really not relying on Scott Tolzien to really go after there. So anything you said, I made a video on the Miami Dolphins potentially making the playoffs. That's in the link in the description. I had a story about Adam Gase with Peyton Manning calling him back out of retirement. That's in the link in the description. If you're interested, click on those. I'll see you next time, guys.